welcome back to Saph Reacts, and this episode is part 4 of the Sleep Token Take Me Back to Eden discussion and analysis series. Today we are going to be listening to AQUA REGIA, and this is the fourth track. I got myself confused there. Fourth track on the album. Again, this is being streamed live over on my Twitch channel, so you can see all of my chat up here scrolling through as we listen to the song, and we'll be discussing it after we've listened. So, without further ado, let's get on with it. So peaceful. Love that piano. Beautiful.
Well, my love is an animal call, cutting through the darkness, bouncing off the walls, between teeth on a broken jaw, following a blood trail, frothing at the mole. These days I'm a circuit board, integrated hardware you cannot afford. The perfect start to a perfect war, putting down the roses, picking up the sword.
I'm just gonna pause it here. It has no right to be this sexy.
AQUA REGIA. AQUA REGIA. Well, my past is a holy book, a call from Olympus, ringing off the hook. Between the pain and the way you look, I'm stuck in a time where the mountains shook. And these days
I love what he did with his voice there. Beautiful.
screaming at the sunshine, singing in the rain, sugar on the blood cells, carbon on the brain, out of Eden's vices running through my veins. AQUA REGIA, oxytocin running in the ether, silicon, all rooms, subatomic interactions if it's all good. Gold rush, acid flux, saturate me, I can't get enough. Cold blood, hot blood, running to your heart when you're thinking of.
This piano makes me so happy, like I can't even tell you.
When I'm dancing to alarm bells, no wonder my ears are still ringing. And I'm done fighting off change.
Yeah, the piano is beautiful.
No wonder my arms are still swinging. AQUA REGIA, oxytocin running in the ether, silicon, ballrooms, subatomic interactions if it's all good. Gold rush, acid flux, saturate me, I can't get enough. Cold love,
She's actually one of my favourite characters. I love her.
running to your heart when you're thinking of.
Reminds me a bit of Periphery's jazz breakdowns. Periphery are a band I need to listen to more. A well-written, story-driven concept album. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Um, that was Aqua Regia, and I just that smooth kind of makes my heart very, very happy. And for me, the piano parts, as somebody who used to be a pianist, just mm, so beautiful, so beautiful. So this one was a little bit harder for me to kind of analyze until I found out what aqua regia actually is. It's a real thing, people, and I love this. It is it is a highly it's aqua regia actually translates to king's water, I believe. Somebody somewhere, please do correct me if I'm wrong. But it's a highly corrosive substance that's able to actually attack gold and other similar substances if it's handled improperly. If it's handled properly, however, it can actually change it into its most pure form. Keep that in mind because gold is something of a recurring theme. So, here he's saying his love for this other person is like that as an animal's mating call. It's able to cut through or outshine anything around him, but he's all the more broken for it. It's taken on a dark, almost obsessive turn. Um, that kind of obsessive link actually filters through very, very heavily into the next track. This for me harkens back to the song Jaws by them, actually, which is one of their earlier songs, where he references pretty white jaws. Only here, the teeth in these jaws are broken, they're sharp, they're jagged, and he's become almost feral and aggressive himself in the pursuit of a relationship in this person. It also, for me, links back to the summoning with the image of that blood trail, where he says, following a blood trail frothing at the moor. In the summoning, he says, I've got a blood trail, red in the blue. So again, that imagery is very recurrent through this album. This again speaks of what he thinks is this hyper close connection, this blood bond that he feels with this person, something that has linked them so closely together that it's inevitable that they will change their mind and want him the same way he wants them. He's still following that blood trail in the hopes that this time things are going to be different. He's yearning for that connection obsessively, so hence frothing at the moor. His emotions are just like wild and uncontrolled. His sense of self seems to have changed here, which tracks quite well with the theory that the end of Granite was a literal crash, as sometimes accidents like that can actually change how a person views themselves and others around them, making them reconsider their sense of self-worth and self-belief. I do speak a little personally there. He says that he's a circuit board, a means of support and connection, but that he's something the other person can't afford, integrated hardware you cannot afford. He's got a little bit more confidence in his own self-worth and value, and he's letting the other person know that. What's interesting is the gold connection here. As I mentioned even, aqua regia is a substance that can actually dissolve gold if improperly made and handled, but when handled correctly, it's used to refine it to the highest purity. Now, if we look back again at Chokehold, he says, I'll turn my walls to gold to bring you home again. This to me says that he's still searching for that purity, that feeling of chemistry, and having something that he's made pure by sheer virtue of loving that other person enough. Also links back into the summoning where he talks about making a good girl bad. He wants to be able to change this other person. In Granite, that chemical reaction, the aqua regia, was imbalanced, and instead of turning the relationship pure, created friction and more toxicity to the point of causing actual physical harm. That actual physical harm is something I will come to much later. Gold is something used commonly in circuitry and computer hardware, which again links back to this song and his feelings about himself changing, where he's realizing his worth as well, which I think is very important to note. Sentiment is reinforced in the next part. He's protecting himself a little bit, going almost into like an offensive stance to do so. He's prepared to fight for what he wants and what he thinks is worth fighting for, even prepared to lay down something precious and dear to him to do so. Perfect start to the perfect war, putting down the roses, picking up the sword. What's interesting here is that the rose in Greek mythology is actually linked to Aphrodite, the goddess of love, lust, pleasure, and passion, who used the oil of the rose to protect one of the Trojan prince's bodies, nursing him back to health among the rose blossoms. He still considers himself this person's guardian, someone he'll go out of his way to protect at all costs. And what strikes me here is the connection between AQUA REGIA and the person he's talking about. For me, I'm wondering if the person is actually the AQUA REGIA, someone he is offering his love to only for them to corrode it slowly over time. They're enjoying everything he offers to them. They're taking everything. They're giving nothing in return. And he is allowing them to just slowly dissolve the pieces of his heart that he's given them and twisting his love into something dark and obsessive. In the right hands, the right heart, read with the right chemical formula being used correctly. However, his love would become something pure and golden rather than tarnished. He moves on to say that his past is a holy book, something that's been passed down through the ages, a living record for everyone to read, see his mistakes, the things he's done to gain the love and affection of this person. That call from Olympus, bringing me back to the fact that there's an obvious connection to deities here, which, given their lore, there is throughout all of their albums and EPs. He's already granted a sort of godhood and an apotheosis, as I said earlier, to this person, raising them up above all else. But now perhaps he's not answering their calls as often because he's realizing that they're just taking and giving nothing in return. So that call from Olympus ringing off the hook. He mentioned that he's stuck in a time where the mountains shook, which suggests that he feels very trapped in this tumultuous situation. He raised this person up so high that any anger towards him in granite feels like the gods shaking the mountains with their wrath, and it scares him, but he's stuck there. He can't see a way out. He compares himself to a picture frame, something that's on display for all to see, and he's screaming with the pain and fear and frustration he's feeling at the hands of this other person's seeming indifference. The fact that he's screaming at the sunshine but singing in the rain denotes that he's very much out of sorts within himself. He's doing things in the opposite way to how most people would. He's happier when things are raining or more negative, as that's what he's used to. Being in the sunshine or around more positive influences would make him uncomfortable and very unsure. When he speaks about sugar and carbon, it makes me think that being near this person is giving him something like a sugar rush, that kind of dopamine effect. But there's actually an almost instant downside, like an instant sugar crash with the carbon. Interestingly, too much carbon dioxide can actually have a very negative effect on your thinking and decision-making abilities. So when you add this to the vices he references, perhaps thinking maybe about the Garden of Eden being cast out for angering the gods, it's clear that he's still under the influence of this person and their chokehold on him, still very fearful of their potential godlike wrath if he steps out of line with them, despite knowing his own worth. They still have a tight grip on him, and he's just not able to break that karmic tie just yet. This is further compounded, pardon the pun, sorry, when he talks about gold rush and acid flux. Flux is a chemical used to remove metal oxides in order to create a good bond during the soldering process. And again, we come back to the gold. With this, I think perhaps things are starting to break down. That shiny gold surface is being dissolved, corroded to expose the darker parts underneath. Despite this, he cannot get enough of that feeling, and he wants to be fully immersed in it, even though it's causing harm and destruction. He wants to be able to run to this person whenever they're thinking of him. He would drop everything to do what they want. By the end of the song, there's a marked change in tone, perhaps a shift in awareness, maybe that the situation is just no good for him, and it's causing more harm than good now. And he says he's done dancing to alarm bells, and he no longer wants to fight off that change. He's in a state of almost fight or flight. And that's giving him some indication that things need to be better, otherwise he's just going to end up depleted and exhausted. For me, this song feels like it has two very different, distinct parts. The sections where he knows that things are toxic and corrosive and corroding what would be something pure and beautiful shows an awareness of the red flags in the relationship and an indication that he knows he needs to get out, find himself again, rather than being stuck in someone's hold. And then there are the moments where he almost gives in to that feeling of the sugar rush because it's easier for him to do so than fight off that fear of change. It's a very, very important song in context of this album. Very, very much so. That's my take on it, but I would have, as always, like to hear yours. So please do go ahead and let me know what you're thinking. I'm going to move on to the next track, which is Vor. So that will be in the video down below in the playlist if you're watching this on YouTube. And thank you again very, very much for tuning in. I'll see you all in the next episode. Bye for now.